Hey there, and welcome to this workshop on creating retro style motion design. My name is Cameron, and we're going to build out our very first scene here. And for this scene, we are going to start with a plugin that I absolutely love to use. We're going to create a new solid. We're going to call this Globe. And I am going to show you a way that you can do this without this plugin. But let's start here with the plugin. We're going to go to Effect, Yano Box, Nodes 3. And Nodes 3 is a very powerful plugin. I use it quite a bit for very specialized projects like you're seeing here. If I click on Browse Presets, it's going to load up this menu here of all these different presets you can pick from. And there's so much good content here to pick from. So many of these I have used in different projects throughout the years. But we're going to scroll all the way down here and we're going to find a globe. And we're going to go down, 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 down. Keep going. You can see how many presets come with this thing. It's so awesome. We're going to go down here to... let's do maybe real wireframe sphere. And we're going to click apply. And it loads it in here. And what's really cool about this plugin is typically you're already going to have animation that loads in with it as well. So if I scroll back up here and open this up and kind of bring this over here, you're going to see that we've got animation applied for the rotation of the sphere. So maybe I'll increase it a little bit here. Maybe we'll make it like 24. We don't need any other rotation. So now it's just going to rotate a little bit faster. And if I click preview, you can see how quickly this loads in. So pretty cool stuff. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we are going to play around with some of the settings here. So I'm just going to look here under, let's go down to rendering and let's play around with some of these in here. And let's type in -375 and maybe 275. And what I'm doing is trying to just make it a little bit more interesting so that we lose some of the edges here. And let's also come down here and let's hide. Okay, so let's go if position is lower than negative. Oh, let's do 200. I think that'll work. Let's come up here to lines and let's make the thickness just a little bit thicker there. And let's take the, let's leave the line opacity okay, but let's take probability down to something like 65%. And you can see here now how all of a sudden it's looking a little bit more interesting. Now, also I can see back in here that there's a kind of like a background pattern there. And that's what I was trying to get rid of with this Z position here. And maybe it's not that one. Maybe it's one of these top ones. So you can see how that affects it. And that affects it. I know that one of these will get rid of it. Let's try changing this from over to mix. And there we go. There we got rid of the background. That's going to work just great. Let me come up here and look at form. So 40. Let's try and increase this to 40 as well. So we have a few more blocks to look at. So that's at 40. That's at 20. Let's try in the middle. Let's try 30. No. Let's increase it. Maybe we'll go 40. That works for me. And so you can see just by playing with these different parameters here, I can get some really interesting, like I said, looks. But that's going to work for me. What I'm doing here is just creating a very basic globe to work with. So if I didn't want this to be kind of like half filled in, all I'd have to do is come back down here to my lines and take the lines probability back up to 100 and we're good to go. So you can see what that does. And also back at 100%, if I don't want as many blocks here, I would turn this back down to something like 20. And there we go. And I actually kind of like that a little bit better. So let's do lines probability back down. You know, maybe something right there. That's pretty good. I like that. And then it rotates. So if you don't have this plugin, what you can do is, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. You can use Maxon Cinema 4D Lite, which comes with your Adobe CC subscription. So to do that, we're going to make sure we're on our timeline. We're going to go to Layer, New, and we're going to do Maxon Cinema 4D file. Okay, so I'm going to save my file, and we're going to call this, let's call it Globe, and click Save. And what's going to happen next is Cinema 4D is going to launch. And it doesn't matter what version you have. You may have a different version than I do. That's okay. We're in Cinema 4D Lite, and we're going to come up here, and where it says Cube, we're going to click on Sphere, just like that. We're also going to go up here to Display, and we're going to make sure that we have hidden lines on. So now you can see what our sphere actually looks like. So over here, and it's okay if you don't know Cinema 4D Lite here. I'm just going to walk you through this very quickly. We can click on Sphere here, and we can increase the number of segments. So right now we have 16 segments here. So let's say we want double this. We can type in 32, hit enter, and you can see now we've got more squares here to look at, okay? We can also change it from standard to something like, I don't even know how you pronounce these words. We can see how different this looks. Hexahedron, octahedron, which is very interesting. I like that one a lot. I use that sometimes. This is another one I use a lot, and I don't know how you pronounce it. Icosahedron and hemisphere, which is just half. So you could, let's say, let's go with this one. This is kind of interesting. And I'm just using these mouse buttons to kind of look around it to zoom out. Now, if I click my render button, which is right here, render view, you're going to see it just looks like a sphere, right? We can't see the lines. So what we need to do to see the lines is we need to create a texture. So we're going to double click down here, and it creates a texture. And we're going to drag this texture up here on the sphere. So now it's on the sphere. So if I double click this texture and I open it up and I go to color, and let's say I make it red. Now when I click render again, you can see we have a red sphere, but that's not what we want. We want a kind of like a blue color sphere. So if we go back into After Effects here and I look, if I turn that Cinema 4D file off and go back into my original globe, I want it to be the same color. I like this color a lot. So I'll click this color and I will double click on that color to copy it, Command C to copy, go back into Cinema 4D here. And we're actually going to turn off color, and we're going to turn off reflectance, and we're going to use luminance here. And for luminance, we are, let's see here, we're going to come in to this right here, and we're going to double click and Command V to paste. And now we have our blue color here. Click OK. And if I click render, now we have that blue color, right? But we still don't see the lines. It's just filled in. So what we need to do is we need to create these lines. So we're going to go into alpha and we're going to turn it on. And then under alpha, we're going to click texture, and we're going to come down here to effects, and we're going to go to where we're at, proximal, right there. And now in our preview here, there's nothing here. And if I click render again, there's nothing there. So what we need to do is we need to click on that, and we need to put our object in here to tell this alpha to look at this object. This is our object right here, okay? So if I click it, still nothing there. I'm gonna say use vertexes, use edges, and we're gonna turn our end distance down to 2%. And you can see there's a little tiny dot there. Click render again, still not there. So the last thing I need to do is come up here to my model. I'm gonna hit C on my keyboard, or I can come over here and say make editable. It's the same thing, make editable. Now, if I click render, you can see, now I can see my object, right? Now it's a little bit fuzzy. It's a little too big, and that has to do with my 2% here. So I'm gonna change it to 1%, click render. And that's looking pretty good to me. I like that a lot better. It works better for I guess what I envisioned. Now, if I don't like all these crazy lines, the problem is now that I've hit C to make this editable, I can't come back and change the type of sphere that we saw over here. So what I would have to do is make a new sphere. And I'm going to turn off my old sphere, double click the button there, double click the button here, go to the sphere, make it 32 again, because we liked 32. Keep it standard, and then come back up here and hit C to make it editable. And I'm going to delete this one out of here, bring this here, make sure that this material is applied to my sphere, and then click render. And you can see we've got a different looking sphere here. And I like this one a little bit better. So that works for me. Now all I would have to do is just create some animation here of this sphere turning, because right now it's not turning, it's just sitting there. So what I'm gonna do again is I'm gonna jump back into After Effects. I'm gonna look here and say, you can see that it's only 3 seconds long, right? And I want this to be 5 seconds long. And this is my Cinema 4D file right here. If I turn it back on and I turn off our other one, you're going to see, you can't actually see anything because it's using an interesting texture with an alpha channel. So if I go up here to my Cineware and change this to current, it's going to load in my sphere here. And it's not visible because we haven't saved the file. So we have to go back into Cinema 4D, hit Command S or File, Save, and we'll jump back into After Effects, and you're going to see it should pop in here. There we go. There it is. So that is our render. And again, like I said, it's only 3 seconds long. We want it to be 5 seconds, which is, if you look, it's 149 frames. So we need to get back into Cinema 4D, and you can see here we're only set to 90 frames. So let's make it 150 frames. We'll drag this guy out, Command S to save, jump back into After Effects, and now, there we go. It's the full length. Now to animate this, you would need to go back into Cinema 4D, and we'll delete our old sphere, take this sphere, and under coordinates here, we're probably going to animate on the this first one here. So I'm going to click here to set a keyframe, come to the end of my timeline, and let's make it 358 degrees, not 360, because we want it to do a loop. So there we go. Now you can see here by default, Cinema 4D does ease in and out keyframes. You can see it's going to slow down, stop, start, speed up, full speed, slow down, stop. So to fix that, all we have to do is click on the keyframe animation, show F curve, and you can see here, there's our ease. Make sure both keys are selected and come up here to linear. And now you can see it just spins 100% speed the entire time. So again, I can save, file save, come back here into After Effects, and you're going to see that it's rotating there. And I don't know how much of that you can see. It depends on your computer. If we go to half res, we can see it spinning a little bit better. But this is, After Effects is rendering your 3D file in real time here, which is pretty awesome. We can actually even add a camera here and get our globe to react to that camera and all that, but I'm not going to jump into that. That's how you do create a globe or any type of 3D wireframe object with Cinema 4D Lite if you don't have YanoBox, which is right here. So there's our YanoBox, looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and duplicate this 3 times. And what we're going to do here is make like an interesting chromatic aberration effect. So this top one, we're going to call it globe red, so R, and then globe G for green, and globe B for blue. We're going to select the 2 top ones, set them to screen, and it looks a little funky right now, but we'll get back to this. Globe R, effect, channel, shift channels, and this is something you've seen done probably a lot, where we're going to shift all the channels. So this is the red channel. So what we need to do here is we need to say red is red. That's great. Green is full off. Blue is full off. We're going to take that, Command C to copy, jump into green, Command V to paste. Red is now full off, and we're on the green, so we need to make sure that green is from green. There we go. Click on the blue. Command V to paste. Red is full off, and blue is taken from blue. And now we're back to our original image again. Okay, so now let's select our green channel here. And if we solo it, we can see it's a green channel. And we're gonna hit P for position, and we're going to right click on position and say separate dimensions. And with dimensions separated, we're going to Alt Option click on the X position, and we're gonna type wiggle. We're using expressions here. Very simple expression. Wiggle is one that I use all the time for a lot of things. 3, which is our frequency, 3 times per second, we are going to wiggle the X position by 15 pixels. Click outside of it. And if I preview this, you can see what's happening here. So it's kind of hard to tell just by itself, but if I turn all 3 layers on, you can see that even though it's the green channel, it actually appears as blue because of the way it's moving here in the preview. But it's starting to look a little bit more retro-like, right? Like it's not perfect. There's some weirdness happening. There's some slippage happening with the channels. That's what we want. So let's go up to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and let's add a Gaussian blur to this. And we're just going to go horizontal since we're moving this guy just horizontally, side to side. And let's just crank this up to something like 22. So there, look at that. Now all of a sudden it looks real retro, right? It's looking real kind of just aged, I guess is a good word. I could turn this down, maybe something like 15. It's a little less retro that way, but let's actually crank it back up to, let's go to 20. So I like that a lot. That's looking pretty good. Next, let's add some typography. Okay, so let's add some typography. I'm gonna save, and we're gonna go up here to the text tool, and we're gonna click here, and there we go. And let's just put in the word retro. Pretty cool, right? Very basic. Let's crank up the size here, something like, I don't know, 225. Let's change the font. So I found a font, a typeface online called Sci-Fi Bronze. And if you search Sci-Fi Bronze, you're going to find it pretty quickly. It's a free typeface, and I like the look of it. It looks pretty good. So we're going to use that, and let's align this to the center and align it to vertically, horizontally and vertically. So it's just kind of center aligned like that. And next, let's go ahead and colorize this a little bit. So let's click on the white here, and let's come down here, maybe around 40. Bring up the saturation pretty high, maybe like 85. Yeah, that'll work. And let's also bring up the brightness a little bit. Actually, the brightness is pretty good right there. So this is kind of a cool look because it's got the yellow juxtaposed, contrasted with the blue and the green in the background. So it's like a nice retro color palette here. So I like that. So next, let's hit P for position, and let's animate this guy in. So let's set a keyframe here at 1 second. So at 1 second, he's going to rest here. But at the beginning here, let's have him come in from the bottom. So he comes flying in just like that. And I'm going to bring in my marker here, hit N to end my work area here so we can just render this. And I like that, but let's right click on this last keyframe, keyframe assistant, easy ease in. So now it'll come to a nice stop there. So before it was very sudden when it stops here. And if we redo that, you can see it comes to a nice stop just like that. Like that. Now let's make this type look a little bit retro. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go to Effect. Let's go to Stylize. And let's find the effect. Where is it? Actually, it's under Time. Time Echo. There we go. Time Echo. We're going to add that. And you can immediately see what's starting to happen here. Let's increase the number of echoes to 15. Look at that. Liking that. Let's turn down the decay. And the decay just means that these bottom repetitions are going to be not so bright. So we'll turn it down to maybe like 0.8. So there's some opacity, some transparency happening there. And let's also change it from add to something like composite and back. So again, so now it's not so bright, right? So this was add. You can see how bright it is there. If we change it to something like composite and back, it just looks better. Okay, so now we're gonna add some VHS kind of noise to the background here to give it some interesting life in the background. So for this, we're gonna use another effect, but we're gonna create an adjustment layer first, and we're gonna call this VHS. And I'll show you how you can do this without this effect as well. But we're gonna use effect, and we're gonna go down here to Red Giant Universe Stylize, and we're gonna go down to Uni VHS. And there we go. Immediately looks, more interesting right off the top. Let's enable color controls, which they are. And let's go down here to, let's bring down the saturation. So remember from our looking at the different examples, the saturation was quite a bit lower for everything. And maybe that's too low. We'll go up to 75. I actually kind of like the saturation a little bit higher for this, because we start to lose some of our look. But that's, that's okay. One thing we could actually do is we could change our transfer mode here to something like lighten, and it's going to keep more of that color. It's going to kind of disregard the type here and look more at the background. But for now, let's leave it at normal just to see what we can come up with. So I like that. Tape damage, yes, I like. I don't want the edges here though. So let's get rid of that. So let's go from VHS noise. Let's try bad tracking. That's a little bit intense. That's really intense. Let's actually go back to VHS noise here. Let's look at, we've got tape wrinkle, tape noise. So a lot of these, it's just a matter of playing around with them and seeing what works and what doesn't. If I do VHS none, it gets rid of that line over here, which I kind of dig that. But I like the rest of the look. So what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna scale this up to get rid of, see if we can get rid of, and that's not gonna happen. Let's try something else here. So let's just turn off enable tape damage. Let's just make it simple. Let's just turn that off. We get rid of the line over here, which I wanted to do. And for now, you can see what that really does to the background. Like I said, I don't love what it's doing to the type. So I'm going to change it to lighten. And so it's just more of like a background type of filter here. If I turn off adjustment layer and I go to layer solid settings and change it from white to black and click OK and turn it off and on, off and on. I actually don't like that. So I'm going to undo, 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 and get back to that adjustment layer and lighten versus normal. We'll keep it at normal for now. Next, let's create another new adjustment layer here. And this is going to be called effects. And let's just start creating some more effects here. So go to distort and let's go all the way down here to wave warp. Let's change it from sine to square. Let's increase the wave height to maybe 20. And let's take the width all the way up here. Let's take it like way up to like 1,000. 1000. Let's take the direction back to 0. Let's also take the wave speed really slow. So like negative 0.1. Let's pin all the edges. So it's going to get rid of this black here on the sides. And I think that might work. So now let's check out what we're doing here is we're creating like this kind of wave warp here that you see. I need to actually increase this a little bit. You can see it kind of coming down the image here, just like that. So it's creating like this interesting kind of tape wrinkle effect that this is, common. This is easy to use. Like if you don't, It's easy to implement if you don't have a third-party plugin like VHS from Red Giant. It's pretty effective. I like how it looks a lot. Also, if we were to turn off, just to show you guys that VHS effect here, and come back into our effects, we could start applying some effects here like color correction curves. And we could make a curve here to kind of simulate what the VHS effect is doing. I'm going to click here to add a point. Add a point, maybe right in here. Bring the blacks up a little bit like that. Add a point here, kind of adjust them like that. Something like that. I could also go to effect, color correction, hue, and saturation down here. And we could drop the saturation here to something like, oh, maybe negative 33%, something like that. We could also go to effect, noise and grain, and we could add some noise here. Maybe make it 20%. Yep. And we could go down to effect, transition, Venetian blinds. And for this, let's see here, we could do something like 90. Let's turn it on its side here, increase it, maybe like something small, 10% or so, and then drop the width down to like 5. And it's very, very subtle, but that's with and without. So you can see what's going on there. I like that. Then we're going to go into effect, blur and sharpen, fast box blur, and we're going to turn this up to something like 3. And then we're going to go into effect, blur and sharpen, and we're going to add the, where is it? Sharpen filter here. And we're going to crank this way up to something like 242. And you can see there, and we're at half res. So let's go to full res here. You can see how it's starting to look. It looks very retro-like as well. And I can actually now leave this VHS effect off. And I mean, we have the same kind of look going on here. I'm going to save. I'm going to preview this and see how it looks. So that's looking pretty good. Let's add one more line here. A lot of times when you see these lines that come through the tape, there's actually usually a couple of them. So we'll go back to effects here. Let's go back to effect, distort, and we'll go back down here to wave warp. And for this, we're going to leave it at 10. The first one was at 20, and we're going to change it to square as well. We're going to zero this out to that. We're going to make this one a little bit faster. So we'll go negative 0.2, and we're going to pin all the edges. And now we should see something. Yeah, we can see 2 lines happening here, right? And they're going to move at different speeds. So this line here is moving faster. You can see this one's moving slower. This is the bigger line. So they're going to eventually start kind of crossing over each other. And here comes the next one. It's repeating itself. Yeah, I like that a lot. So again, you can use an effect like the VHS effect from Red Giant, or you can make your own like we did here, right? So there's 2 different options. So you can see how this one looks. You could go back into the VHS look here. Looks totally different. And we could add effects to this as well, where there's like, I think it was under actually tape damage, where we have like the lines come through. Actually, we've got some lines here at the oh, there we go. There's some lines coming across. I think, where is it? There is a way to do that where you can, maybe it's interlace error. But if you play around with these different settings, you're going to get some really fun effects happening here. So I like that a lot. I actually like that a little bit better than the effect I just did. But again, this is all a matter of if you have the effects or not have the effects. So there's that option too. Next, let's add another adjustment layer here. And we'll call this glow. And again, you can use any type of glow. You can use the built-in After Effects glow. You can use any third-party glow. I like a couple glows. Deep Glow by Plugin Everything is one of my favorites. I also like Sapphire's glow a lot. So those are the two I'm typically going to go to. I'm going to drop the radius down here, 400. I'm also going to drop the exposure down to like maybe 0.45. And I'm going to go into input here, and I'm going to increase the threshold to something like 40. So it's not affecting as much of the image. And I'm also going to smooth this out. Maybe something like that, which I don't love with the type so much. It's not working so well with the type. Let's go down to chromatic aberration. Let's enable it right here. It's just a little added bonus where you can just click a button and it's there, and it looks good for the most part, most of the time. So again, let's go back. Let's play around with some of these values here. I'm trying to fix this in here. I just don't like it at all. If I turn off VHS and go back to my retro look, it actually looks better there, right? That's a little bit nicer look with the text. I like that a lot. So that's without and that's with. The glow radius is a little strong. So we could actually decrease this to something like 200. It's a little bit tighter, or we could actually go the opposite way and go bigger. It just kind of depends on what your preference is. I'm actually going to maybe go somewhere in here, maybe lower. I'm going to increase that, but I'm going to decrease the exposure. Maybe something like that. And then I'm going to go back here to VHS, turn that on, turn effects off, and look at that again. Again, you know, it just looks a little weird. And for something like this, I'd probably have to drop the glow below the VHS effect, and see, it gives me a completely different look. So VHS off, our effects back on, completely different look. It all depends on where you want to go with this. So based on this, the glow is too intense. So I'm going to turn it down even more. A lot of times glow, it's less is more. Maybe bring the radius in. Now maybe bump it up a little bit. You know, I don't know. That's an interesting look. It's a little too strong on the background though. That's what I'm trying to move away from. So if I increase the threshold, maybe bring down the smoothing. There I can go is crank it way up. You know, that's nice. I actually kind of dig that. So that works for me. Next, we're going to add a little bit of jitter to this. So let's go to layer, new adjustment layer. And we're going to call this transform. And to this layer, we're going to do just that. We're going to add the transform effect. So effect, distort, transform down here. And let's bring it up to the top of the layer stack here. And we are going to Alt or Option click on position. And we're going to add a wiggle expression again. And let's just try a value of like 5 and 10. So a frequency of 5 times a second, 10 pixels. I want this frame to kind of move around a little bit and create like an interesting kind of flutter to the footage here. So let's see how this looks. Now, I think it looks okay. I don't like, again, these borders here. The borders are what drive me crazy with this VHS effect. So I'm going to go back to the effect. I'm going to turn off the tape damage. And you can see, again, we're getting like these weird edges here. So under transform, I need to actually scale this up a little bit. So let's go like maybe 105. And we're going to get rid of those black edges there. And that works. And let's see how this looks. So that's looking better, but it's a little bit too much movement. So let's change it from 10. Let's change it down to maybe like a 5. So 5 and 5. And it's just going to be still the same frequency of 5 times per second, but the amplitude of 5 pixels is all we're messing with here instead of 10 pixels. So it's half the distance in the movement. And I already like that a lot better. Again, I'm going to go back to VHS. This is what I do a lot of times is I'm turning effects off. I'm turning them back on. Because we increased the transform, the scale of this image, it actually got rid of the edges there. And that works for me. now because those edges were driving me crazy. So I actually like this even better. Like that a lot. Let's go ahead and bring our glow back above our VHS here just to see. No, I like it like this a lot. And let's add one final adjustment layer here. So layer new, adjustment layer. And this is going to be called posterize time. And in my research of looking at these different animations, I noticed that a lot of times time was posterized. So effect, time, posterize time. And this is something where you can just play around with values. I'm going to put in 12. And what you're going to see here is now all the motion is much more steppy. And in that sense, it's much more analog and retro-like in its feel. So let's see how this looks. All right, so it's looking pretty dope in my opinion. I really like it a lot. One thing I'm going to do here is just decrease the glow, maybe to like 300. Yeah, just to give it a little bit softer glow. Look at the yellow a little bit here. Maybe decrease the saturation. Maybe 75. So it's just a little bit less there. And I mean, there's like with any motion design project, there's always 1,000 things you could do to keep messing around with the project. But I'm happy with how this turned out, creating a retro style design in the animation with using a few different techniques here. So let's wrap this one up and let's move on to scene number 2.